And welcome to another episode of The Focal Thought. My guest today is Maggie Perotin. How are you, Maggie?
I'm really good, Croydon. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. It'll be fun to speak with you today on this topic of leadership, which is something I'm always pursuing. I've always been fascinated about. So I'm glad to have you on board. And just in a way of a
That's
quick
awesome.
introduction, Maggie, you're a mom with a family, and you are a business and leadership coach.
Yeah.
And you've got your dream plan do coaching model, which I want to get a little
Yeah.
bit into today. And you've got many years of
Okay.
coaching and leadership experience with the corporate world, with many sort of
hmm
high level companies. And your mission, is to empower people to grow their business strategically, stand out from the crowd, and
hmm
take full control of their time. So that's great. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Thank you again. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
great. So my first question I wanted to ask you, how did you get into leadership? Was this something you sort of naturally came into, or was there some sort of inspiration along the way? What was the quick backstory behind that?
Quick backstory behind it is really me getting into working corporate environment in Canada. I'm an immigrant. I'm not sure if you know that, but I am. I am Polish originally, and I came to Canada in 2005. And, I was looking for a job. I am bilingual. I speak French. I learned it back in Poland. I have some family and friends. Um, and I came across this facility management company. And because I was bilingual, they're always looking, for bilingual people in their contact center, customer service center. And that was kind of my first role in Canada, taking phone calls from people sitting and telling that their light is out or their toilet is broken or whatever. And I was taking those calls and sending them out for contractors to fix. But as I grew in my corporate career very quickly, I became more of a team lead role in the contact center where I started leading people. And after that, for the 13 years, I've been in leadership positions in different capacity. And I guess because I realized that I loved it, but I also had, especially in the beginning, very great mentors who taught me how to lead people and how to communicate and how to motivate and so on. So I had mentors and some, training behind it. I developed a passion for it. So, I always loved people. I wanted to be a teacher as a little girl, but teachers in Poland don't make a lot of money, or they didn't at least. My mom was a teacher. So that kind of I didn't pursue that dream. So maybe that's something that always has been in the back of my mind, but it wasn't ever oh, I want to be a leader. It just happened that I got a position in the corporate world in Canada, and I grew from there. And I developed and discovered my passion for helping people grow, because I really believe that's what leadership is all about. So,
No, that's
yeah.
great. And leadership is something I think, personally for me, it's always been the same philosophy, from since the beginning of time. People are leaders in different capacities, not just in the corporate world.
Yep.
Leaders in armies, the generals, leaders in politics, such as, the president, the prime minister, leaders in
Mm-hmm.
family, right? The parents who are
Mm-hmm.
for their children, leaders
Yeah.
in a social setting. If you go to a nightclub, the DJ essentially is the leader on the dance floor, right? He's the one who, or she
Yeah.
is the one, putting out the music so people can dance.
Yeah.
And then, for me, it wasn't until I read Robin Sharma's book, The Leader Who Had No Title, that it sort of made sense that people have this very traditional view of a leader.
Yeah.
That a leader is someone who's in this ivory tower that sits on the top, and you have to have certain credentials to be a leader, a certain amount of experience. But where he
Mm-hmm.
was coming from is anyone can lead. You don't really need that title to lead, right? It could be
Yes.
anyone, and no matter what position you're doing, even if it's not a managerial position, you can still lead in your role and achieve results.
Yeah.
So for you,
Yeah.
what is your sort of personal take on what it means to be a leader?
So my personal take is I totally agree. I actually believe everybody's a leader. Everybody. And I know it's not the common understanding of this word, but I truly believe that, because for me, you need to be able to lead yourself first. And when you can do that, you can actually positively impact others, whether it's intentional or not. Because then when you truly lead yourself first and live the life you want to live and to the fullest, and you develop your potential, you impact others around you. And neither of us lives on like an uninhabited island, right? So we have people around you that always look up to us, whether we know it or not. And those of us who have kids, that's the first thing that probably comes to your mind. Our kids look at us, not what we say, but they model what we do, right? And it doesn't have to be your kids. It could be your classmates at school. It could be your friends. It could be people you work with, whether you have a leadership position or not. When you behave according to your values and you say what you will do and when you do and all that, people will notice and they will look up to you. So I truly believe that everybody's a leader, and I have this concept of self-leadership first.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And, I've heard that many times. Everyone says, it starts with the person. If you look at any organization, the culture and, attribute the success of the organization to who the executive team is at the top, who the leadership is.
Mm-hmm.
And it can even come down to the one person who's at the top, who's driving down the sentiment of the organization.
Yeah.
They're very sort of lean in their approach. The company will be lean. If they're sloppy, that'll
Mm-hmm.
trickle down into
Mm-hmm.
the company, right? Like a bad virus.
Yeah.
And, so I've heard people say it starts with the person. That's why you see a lot of, success with these founders. When their companies do get successful after many, many years, it's because they themselves have that internal drive, the motivation, the discipline to succeed, and to keep at it every day and, plow through all the obstacles that come up as an entrepreneur. And because
Mm-hmm.
of that, the company, is sort of leveraged off that spirit that they have. So do you think that, we need to sort of start with ourselves, lead with ourselves first, because, like I said, that will trickle down into the organization or into the result? Or is it also like you're saying there's some sort of osmosis? So when people learn from you or, receive from you,
Mm-hmm.
they're doing it through modeling? Or is it a bit of both maybe, or any other reasons?
It's a little bit of both. So I truly believe in leadership by example. So you need to lead by example, right? So don't just do what I say, but actually do what I do. So for me, leading people without leading yourself first, it creates the incongruency that people see. And that's how an organization then people become skeptical and a bit sarcastic, right? Because there are organizations who have we have these great values and you should follow them. But then the senior leadership or executive team doesn't really follow them. And people see that, right? We're all intelligent human beings. People see that if our children can notice incongruencies, the adult people in the workplace can do that too, right? So people see that. They might not necessarily express that, but they see it and become very skeptical or sometimes, disappointed. So it has to start with leading by example. And that's how you develop those internal sort of first leadership traits. And then I would say, if you're in a position where you grow into that people leadership role, then there is some skills that every leader should have in leading people, motivating and, growing and developing, that everybody should learn those skills. But it always starts with you, always.
Correct. Yeah. And, definitely by that sentiment, the silent word is much stronger than the spoken word. Yeah. So, if parents are telling their kids not to eat sweets and chips and, salty snacks, but yet they themselves are binging from the pantry, there's that incongruence thing, right?
Right. You cannot exactly that. And that's the perfect example, but it's an example that you can take anywhere, right? But yeah, if I eat sweets, I cannot tell my children not to eat. Now, if I either I don't eat or I put certain boundaries for how I eat sweets, then my children will follow, because they will call out. Our kids are smart. My kids are super smart. My 9-year-olds, you can't anything that doesn't make logical sense, she'll call you out on it. She's, but you say this, but you were doing that. And that sometimes happens. And what you need to do is say, sorry, you're right? I'm not being in integrity in what I say against what I do. And people notice that. Sometimes, senior leaders or people owners of businesses, they have this belief, or they want to believe, that their teams or team members don't see certain things. They do, just like our kids do.
Got it, got it. If people want to become a leader, or if they're already a leader, what, according to you, again from your own sort of personal profession, what would you say are some traits or values that are absolutely non-negotiable, so that leaders must have this, and if they do not have this, they won't achieve any success as being a leader?
Especially in today's world, because like if you look at the history of leadership, we're definitely coming out of the age when there was that command and control times, right? In the 20th century, when it was just do what I say and don't question it, right? Those times are really gone. And then especially in today's times, a successful leader needs to develop a lot of like those, you call it like soft skills, right? Emotional intelligence skills. And the first thing, outside of being, again, self-aware and understanding themselves and how they behave, and certain biases that they might have. We all have those unconscious biases, so being aware of that. But let's just move into like more of a people leading skills. The first thing is listening, and that it's a skill, and unfortunately no one teaches that us, right? Like at school we need to speak and we need to write and we need to do well. It's not necessarily listening, asking questions. So allowing, being open to the ideas of your team, because again, we're in the knowledge industry, and it's impossible right now when you're leading a team or in a complex, depending on the environment, but if it's the more complex environment, the more important it is for you as a leader to know it all or to do it all, right? It's really, we're in the age of teamwork. So being able to be open to different ideas, to listen, consider those ideas, and let people create that safety where people feel safe to speak up without the retribution, right? Because I think there are organizations when people are afraid to speak up, and the challenges that they see or the issues that they see are important for the companies to know. But if they're afraid to speak up, because they're afraid that they lose a good job, or that they will, somehow their career will not go the way they would like to because they speak up, that in the long run, it will be to the detriment of their organization. So create the environment of safety, listen, and ask questions that inspire learning, innovation, creative solutions. I would say those are the most important things. And then, motivation of the people and creating and building engagement of your team.
Got it. So even before getting into the product, getting into the company as an organization, focus on the people, who they are, like the employees, and develop that relationship with them. Because, it's like Kanye West says in these days, relationship is the new currency, right? Like he can go anywhere in the world and he doesn't even need money. Because of his relationship with people, they'll take him in, and he'll be able to manage. And I guess what you're saying is it's no longer the sort of the times of our parents' generation, where you went to work, you were doing as you're told, you had no say in it, you couldn't question the authority. And now that's changed, because if that sort of culture exists today, people will just quit their jobs, right, and they'll move somewhere else.
The Great Resignation is real. I don't know if you heard about it, right? But there is people, especially with COVID, a lot of people realize or had time to pause and really think about what's the most important to them, right? That being with the family and being able to have a fulfilling job without fear, without stress, where they can, grow and not stress out about commuting back and forth and so on. There's a lot of things that people really realized what was important to them. And that's why, a lot of companies are seeing increased voluntary turnover, and it's hard to find good employees. So, COVID I think that trend was already there. It's just COVID sped it up in a way. or made it more visible quicker. Yeah.
Correct. And we can see today, especially in the hospitality industry, a lot of sort of restaurants and cafes, they're looking for staff because,
Yeah.
staff don't want to work. They're getting sort of like a government stipend to stay at home. And even if they do work, they're not taking, you see a lot of the memes that are posted on the internet where, employers have called their staff to work in on, maybe public holidays when they already scheduled it. And they'd rather quit, their job than come in and take on the shift, right? So the employee does have the power. I wanted to ask you about your dream, plan, do coaching model. Just the very title of it, dream, plan, do. Like if you just go with those three words, that can set you up on the path to achieving, what it is you want. So if you could just talk a little bit about that model and how you implement it with your clients.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So, so the dream plan. So let's go with the words first. My clients are mostly, in my business and leadership coaching, my clients are mostly entrepreneurs, service based. So I'll give some examples from that area, but I'll try to also refer to kind of more corporate world or for anybody who has a job rather than their own business. So everything, when you think about it, any idea, anything we want to achieve in our life or in our career, in our business or implement starts in our head as an idea, right? As a dream. And that's where it comes from. It's a dream. It's an idea. But then that's not enough, right? It's just, if we just have an idea or we know something, right? Somebody said, and I don't remember who, but, just pure knowledge is not power, right? Knowledge is power when you can actually implement it and see the results of that. So it's the same with an idea. You can have $1 million idea, but if you don't do anything about it and you keep it in your brain, then it's not going to help anybody and you're not going to make money out of it either, right? So you need to implement it. So, but then a lot of people, and I see that in entrepreneurs, especially, a lot of people have an idea and they almost go straight to implementation, to the doing part. But what happens with that is that without really some intention and thinking, and I'll get back to it in a second, then they lose a lot of time and energy and money trying to implement. And sometimes, and very often, that first or second implementation doesn't go well. And then they think the idea is bad just because they didn't receive the results that they wanted in the first or second try or whatever, and they drop it all together. But it's not because the idea is bad or that, whatever they want to implement. It's just they didn't think through the implementation itself. So that's where planning comes in. Okay, so instead of going, I have an idea, I'm just like reacting to my brain and just going and doing it, I need to first take time. And depending on the idea, if it's a small decision, it doesn't have to be long. If it's a bigger project, bigger decision, it has to be longer. But I want to be intentional about it. So I want to pause and stop and be intentional and plan it out. So let's just say if it was a bigger idea, maybe I have a goal for 2022. Maybe it's so let's just give a personal example this time. A lot of people are setting goals, right? With the new year. Oh, I want to get healthy and I want to be more active and so on. So they have this grand idea. They're all motivated because it's a new year. Oh, I'm going to sign up for the gym, and they just go and sign up. But then they didn't think through like, is the gym open at the times that it works for me? Do I even like gym? Right? Have I ever done it? And so on. So they don't really think through. And then what happens is gym memberships spike in December, and then by February, gyms are empty. If they're open, let's just say outside of COVID, right? Because people drop out, so they never follow through. Instead, when you go through dream, plan, do model, it's like, okay, I want to be healthy and I want to move more, but hey, I haven't been in the gym forever. I actually don't like gyms. So maybe instead I'll just find a different way to move. Well, I'm not in the best shape. So maybe I will start slow and I'll decide that I'm going to go for a walk for 5 days, for example, right? And when is the best time for me to go for a walk? Because maybe I cannot do it in the morning. I cannot do it at noon. Maybe it's has to be the evening, right? And maybe I have to talk to my wife or husband or something about it. I need to make some arrangements. So when you actually take time to plan and think about, all those things will pop up. Your brain will have space. You'll create that container for your brain to solution that idea and find the best way to implement it. And when you have that, then you go into implementation and your results become so much better. You save yourself so much time, so much effort, so much energy, and usually, again, especially in the business setting, so much money down the line as well. So that's the whole coaching model.
Got it. Yeah. And I like that you've made the distinction between the three phases, because they really are phases. Because I think if you dream, the dream is really the end result of success. No one's really dreaming about the obstacles to the path, right, of success. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a fun dream. And then it's also important, I think, with the planning stage, there has to be a balance there, because if you over plan, then it might sort of, paralyze yourself to take the next step. And then, you shouldn't also, plan in such a way that it, stops your dreams. So like you're saying, if your dream is to get healthy and go to the gym, then you find out, hey, wait a minute, I'm not able to make the gym at these times. It doesn't mean, okay, I'm not going to the gym, so I'm not getting healthy. It's like, okay, find a different way that you can still, achieve your result.
Yeah.
And then the doing is important, because you actually require action to achieving your goals, because you can dream and you can plan, but then if you don't execute, nothing's going to happen. And then I guess you can always go back to dreaming and planning and fine tune as you go along as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's a circular process in a way, right? Or triangle, however you want to present a triangle, right? You always come back, because through implementation, you get results, and it doesn't mean you always get perfect results, right? So you get the results that really should just act as an information for you to then reassess and say, hey, what worked great, and I'm going to do more of that, and what didn't, and then how can I refine it, improve it, so now my idea becomes even a better idea, right? Sure. And then I can implement it even better or faster or whatever, more efficiently, depending on what it is. And so I can get better results. So when I implement it, I get even better results, and you build up on it, and then it compounds, right? Whether it's in your health results, whether it's in your business, in your income, or whether it's in your career, professional career.
Correct. And I think, sometimes businesses would fail is because the entrepreneurs just go dream and then do. Yeah. The whole planning stage is, not thought of, very minimally. And you see it a lot of times in the restaurant industry, unless you're taking a successful existing franchise over, that's very different from sort of starting a restaurant from scratch, where you might need 1 to 2 years even of working capital to pay your staff, and, to pay your fixed costs before, income starts coming in. So people really don't think of that, right? They see the success and straight into the success. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And then the other thing is also, I've heard with entrepreneurs, so they have that initial dream, but then the dream can also change, right? Because as you get into it and develop momentum, like you're saying, that original dream might not be, as satisfying. And you might want to upgrade it a little bit or tweak it, or, that can happen as well, because now you're actually in the thick of things, right?
Of course. It's not like when you have one dream, it just stays there forever, right? It's definitely, it can change. You just want to make sure that when you actually change your dream or change your idea or a decision, right? Because a dream could be an idea or a decision you make along the line, that it's a high value type of cycle where I implemented, I learned from it, and then I adjust my idea or change because I have a different idea, or that idea, I might be wrong, right? Sometimes we're not perfect. We make decisions or have ideas that are wrong, as opposed to, and that's based on really intentional sort of assessment and believing in the possibility of that idea working, and us doing, figuring it out and solutioning, as opposed to low value cycle where that changing of the dream or the idea comes more of from fear or impatience, right? Or that lack type of mentality when it's okay, I kind of did it half-ass. I planned half-ass and then I did it and it didn't work. And now I'm starting to feel not confident in my decision, right? I'm starting to feel the fear, and I'm changing it not because because I'm scared, right?
Yeah.
So my belief in that idea comes down too soon, or diminishes too soon because I'm scared. So there is that happy medium, or that balance that sometimes it's difficult to strike, is okay, where do I change it, that idea, right?
Correct. Yeah. And of course, this is something like with the coaching model, we might encourage people to look at on a daily basis, maybe, as they start their day, just to sort of check in to see, where are they, headed towards in terms of their dream, what is the current plan, and what's, the action items for today, right? Because that sort of daily discipline is important also. And this is a great sort of business plan template to start off with.
Yeah. I actually have a journal. It's called the Dream Plan Journal that lasts for a quarter, that I give to my clients, but it's also sort of available, that it allows you to track that, right? That allows you to plan weekly, because that's being proactive, right? When you kind of do your day to day and you don't even plan what you're going to do, or you decide on the day off, that's you're being very reactive, and that's you're ultimately wasting a lot of time. But if you plan weekly ahead, then you can and then assess every week and every month at least, or every quarter, you're seeing, okay, what are the results? Why, I achieved those results, what worked, what didn't. Then you can really see what's working, what's not working, learn faster, and create faster the results you want to create for yourself. Yeah.
Well, that's
and that
important.
Also, one thought I had, like when we talked about entrepreneurs, when you do that, when you take the time to plan and also like track that, right, and plan your weeks, you're removing a lot of hassle, right? As you said, like a lot of entrepreneurs, they go from dreaming to doing, and there's this like hustle culture. There's like, oh my God, or they even if their business is working, then it just how do you say, plateaus? There you go. Plateaus at certain level. They're not able to scale because they're not allowing themselves to be proactive and do what it takes to scale.
Correct. Yeah.
Or instead of, not hustling, you can actually have a successful business and not hustle at all.
No, it's really important. I'm glad you mentioned that, because, as humans, we tend to sort of lull in a state of reactivity sometimes. And if you just wake up and decide, hey, what am I going to do today? That's too late. You've already missed the boat. And, it's not enough to do it the evening before reviewing your goals. It's like you said, maybe look at it a quarter before, maybe even half a year. Some people look, 5 years down the road even, right? Because the sort of earliest stages of proactivity that can, provide leverage to, announce any obstacles that might come up and, ensure smooth sailing, right? As you progress.
Yeah. Exactly.
If there is a person, and again, I'm just saying one person that maybe comes to mind, not as, an absolute person, that you might, look to in popular culture, either in current or past history, that you find, demonstrates, good leadership and has maybe even inspired you. Is there such a person, that comes to mind for you personally?
Good leadership that inspired me. Let me think. That's a question.
Yeah. Again, this doesn't mean this is the only person, but just
yeah. No. I agree. I get it. Popular culture,
or even in personal, someone in the course of your life that.
I'm just trying to think of a people leader. Like personally, I definitely was always inspired by my grandpa. But he was a people leader at some point. He was in local politics at some point. But, I haven't known him, let's say, as people leader. But for me, he was always that, lead by example, always doing the right thing, and also seeing like positive in everything. And definitely he was a generation that went through World War II and communist regime and all kinds of, challenges in his life. And he still, despite that, always saw positive in situations, but also in people, good in people and so on. So that's definitely, my personal sort of inspiration, or person that inspired me. But there's so many. I would say from just trying to think from now. From I would just say, because that comes to mind, like a book. Peter Drucker is definitely a great leadership author or authority. I don't think he lives anymore. So Peter Drucker. But one of the books that was great for me, that I would just refer to the author, is Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah. Very, very good book on leadership. And, Stephen was living by his kind of teachings. So if anybody, would be interested in reading, I highly, highly recommend that book.
Got it. No, I mean, it's one of the top bestsellers in, the business who's who of books, right? So definitely Stephen Covey's someone good to mention. No, that's great. And even with your grandpa, like the fact that he saw good in people, that's important for a leader, right? Not to take things personally and always strive to be positive, practically optimistic and see good in things. And that's when success happens. Because, like Napoleon Hill says, when you create a company, you create it twice, once in the imagination of your mind, and then on paper in physical reality where it, bears fruit and comes to life. So all of this is important.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. And even your grandpa was a local sort of leader within politics, and it's important to remember you don't need that title to be a leader. Someone who takes their family on a vacation, like on a road trip, who's booking the hotels and filling up gas in the car and organizing meals along the way and selecting places to go see. You're being a leader in that moment, right? So even if you work a 9-to-5 job, in that 1 week vacation span, you're the leader of your family, and you've got to pull through. Otherwise, you're going to have screaming kids, right, for the whole week. So
yeah,
no, that's great. Thanks so much again for coming on the show. And if people want to get a hold of your work, where's the best place for them to reach you?
I would say the best place is probably my website. My company name is Stairway to Leadership. So the website is www.stairwaytoleadership.com.
Okay, perfect. And I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks again, Maggie. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I wish you well.
Thank you so much, Croydon. I really appreciate you having me. Thanks.